Good Sunday afternoon, everybody out there in internet radio land. Once again, this is Don the Fox, originally with All Night Long with the Fox show syndicated on Internet Radio Dentata. Now, just as of the new year, got our own studio with Kitty Cavey from the Netherlands. The new studio is Night Moves with the FoxStudio.com, also being hosted by Radio Dentata. The show is pretty much the same as All Night Long with the Fox, except we tend to go a little bit further with this show, as well as I don't do as much of the work on the studio. I leave that to my producer and my co-host, Kitty. We still go out and search worldwide for what we just literally label talented, sexy, beautiful women around the world. It doesn't matter what work category they're in, what lifestyle they're in. We like to kind of hopefully portray every woman. A woman can be beautiful and sexy and not just a sex object. They can be talented, have an incredible brain, know how to use it. They could be the president of some huge corporation and still, whether they dress sexy or whether they could own a show club. They've got a brain, and they're not just, pardon my expression here, but they're not just a chunk of meat on a stage. I did a show through All Night Long with the Fox about a year ago with a gentleman, a promoter out of California named Powder White. He goes by powderxxx.com. And as of late, he's been sending me quite a few stars to interview and have on the show. I'll be quite honest, and I won't point any fingers and name any names. I'd say that about half of the shows have turned out, and the other half, whether it was just miscommunication or the mobile phones didn't work out or the stars just got lost in transaction. But today, I've got one of the successful stars with me, and just to upset some of the listeners and put a smile on my face, we don't have a way yet of recording video, but I do have Kayme Kai on video, but I'll only have her audio on record. But that's okay because I get to see her and you don't. Right now she's sporting this huge smile. Kayme Kai is originally from Hawaii, and as she just mentioned to me, in the first part of her adult career, she's now in California in the LA area, and the first part of her career was commuting back and forth. I had no idea it was a 5-hour flight. That just blows my mind, never having been to Hawaii in my life. I'd love to go. But anyway, regardless, there's a few topics that we're going to bring up, and I'm just going to highlight on them right now, but I want to bring them up in this show with Kayme. She is heavily involved in the motocross world and also has her own, she designs her own 10-piece limited line of motocross wear for women, which I find totally incredible, and I want to really touch base heavy duty on that. But before everybody gets tired of my babbling, welcome to the show, Kayme.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you, like I do with all the stars, and they all have their own story and whatnot, why don't you tell myself as well as the listeners how Kayme got involved in, quote, the porn industry?
It's kind of a unique story from others. I'd say that I grew up around it. Like you said, I'm from Hawaii. I'm actually from the Big Island of Hawaii. Very small town, but my grandparents actually opened up the very first adult bookstore on the Big Island. So I have kind of grown up around it. I I remember at the age of 9, I was helping my grandmother count inventory for the store. So I've always been surrounded by the like adult business in some form. Once I turned 18, I attended community college in Hawaii, and I started working as a clerk in the store. So then became kind of like semi-manager, helping my grandmother, ordering things. I didn't get into the adult industry. Some people say it's a little late, but I was 23 when I got into it, and that was just basically I finished college and I got my business degree, and I decided that I wanted to go and express myself in a different way. So I joined the adult industry.
Now,
And
now,
that
how did you? Who was the first agency that you contacted? How did you go from helping in an adult bookstore to getting actually involved in the industry? That's a big change, is it not?
it is, and I will actually honestly blame my grandmother for getting me into the industry because I made a comment of one day about we were looking at box covers, and I was like, I would totally go and do a scene, and I honestly at the time was joking, but I was like, I totally want to be one of those girls on the box cover, like looking beautiful and getting to have sex all day. Like it sounds like a fun job. So it was probably 2 or 3 days later. My grandmother is very efficient. She came to me with a list of agents that she personally contacted. And on the list of agents was the agency giant, if nobody knows, it's LA
Yep.
Direct Models. They're like the biggest agency in the adult industry. From Fox Modeling, who I decided to sign with at the beginning of my career because they were so intimate, and they, I guess they could have kind of like eased me into the industry rather than get lost in the shuffle of such a big agency like LA Direct. So she basically called these people and she gave me her opinion about what agents I should go with. And she agreed that I should sign with Fox Modeling just because they were such a small agency. And Chris, the owner, seemed really nice on the phone. Um, I was looking at her in astonishment. Just, no, you're totally joking. You did not call these agents. And I kept telling her I was joking. Like, I don't want to go and do porn. And she told me with, even any joke or there's always kind of an underlying truth to whatever you say.
Yeah.
So I should at least go and just do it. Like life is too short. And if I didn't like it, then I could just chalk it up as an experience. But she bought me my first plane ticket.
My
I stayed
God.
out in California. Yeah, I stayed out in California for a week, my very first time out here. Flew out, stayed at the Fox Modeling House, and shot like 3 scenes. And I was totally nervous at the beginning, but it was just something that I fell in love with. Like I didn't realize that I was such a hog for the camera.
Now, this is a very, I've only been interviewing for a couple of short years now, but even in my interviewing career, I have never had a model tell me that their grandmother helped get them involved. So this is like a highlight in my little career. Now, did your grandmother obviously, and maybe in Hawaii or in your culture, if you will, I'm probably using a very bad term there, and I apologize, but is porn not looked upon? You know and I know how society looks upon porn. Everybody thinks of it as dirty, and you better go into the corner and, shut the lights out and close the door if you're going to look at a porn film. Don't let anybody know what you're doing. But if your grandmother took you seriously and tried to help you, not belittling your grandmother whatsoever, but did she obviously look at this whole thing in a different light compared to most people?
Yes, of course. They went through their struggles. It was like I mentioned, we come from a very small town in Hawaii. So everyone knows each other. Everyone knows each other's backstory or what they think they know. And they opened up the very first adult bookstore on this entire island. So they kind of went through the struggles of people petitioning to shut it down. It's dirty, But my grandmother and grandfather actually had like such this reputation of community and like they just wanted to help. Like any
Community
type of
involvement.
charity, yes, a lot of community involvement. So my grandmother actually, like she showed people that it wasn't dirty, that to express yourself sexually was not dirty, that it's kind of healthier to express it than to keep it all in. And so she was like this big advocate for this community. And that's how I grew up as well. Like very liberal family. I could ask them any question about anything, not just about sex, but they were always very open. They're, which I love that. Like I can still ask my mother a question and she will still be honest with me. Like she never sugarcoats anything. And in my opinion, I just think that's such a great way to raise children because
It is, yes, I totally agree.
you just get it all out there and there's no secrets. And if you kind of make like your sexuality is shameful and that, you know, it's such a dirty secret that you shouldn't share it, then people become kind of stifled and that's when people repress things and that's not healthy.
Right.
So, she had her struggles. She had to really fight to keep this store open. And when she showed that it's not something dirty, that they're actually doing something that's healthy, it's kind of like a romantic thing that couples can come in and express themselves to each other. And so she has never thought of it as shameful. And I never thought sex was shameful at all because I was never taught for it to be, you know?
Wow. Well, that's really, really good. Now, you went out to LA for your first shoot. Were you all by yourself?
I was all by myself.
So you're either really brave or a little bit off center.
Well,
Pardon me for saying so.
I am a Sagittarius, so we're like known for travels and adventures. I'm really into astrology. So I think I am a little brave. Of course, I was completely nervous because it was the very first time I have ever been out of the state of Hawaii. So I lived a little sheltered life in that way. So I was a little culture shock when I landed at LAX and there's all this
Oh my
rush
God.
hour traffic and freeways. Never saw that before.
No kidding.
So yeah, it was a little bit of a culture shock, but I love adventure. Like I'm never one to shy away from it just because I'm scared. Like I'll always see something and go after something. So it was just an adventure.
Now, you're on a 5-hour flight from Hawaii to LA, your first ever, and you're going to shoot your first ever porn film. What in the hell is going through your mind a 5-hour flight before you even land to travel to the studio?
What was I thinking? I think I was mostly worried about the people in California. Like in Hawaii, it's very family oriented. Everyone is so nice. They will talk your ear off. Just so friendly. And I was a little scared about how my agent was going to be and how the people in the adult industry were going to be. So I think that was the main thing that was going through my mind was how I was going to be treated when I got into the industry.
Now, when you got there and everything started happening, if you could think back and then think ahead, I guess both times think back. Now, go back to when you first made the comment to your grandmother. And then